Yeah. Everyone's going to eventually hear what I first said, but I'm really big on living your life by design. And so a few years ago, I was finishing up graduate school. I went back to school after my kids started school. I'm a solo parent. And as I said, like if you have kids, there's no such thing as free time. And I knew that in a few years, I would be having a lot of free time. My youngest son just went to college a few weeks ago, and I like to look a few years down the road. So like, what am I going to do with myself? I had a lot of ideas. Am I going to go back to school and get my PhD? Am I going to get an MBA? Like, what am I going to do? One of the things I was interested in was commercial real estate investing, and I wanted to learn more about that. I'm in my mid 40s, and as much as I love school, I knew I would not want to be doing homework and research and writing a thesis. Yeah. I want to take the summers off. I want to work in my garden. I want to travel, and working for someone else or being in school doesn't allow for that. So I'm like, well, let's learn about commercial real estate investing. I know some people in office and hospitality, and I was in a room about maybe 5 years ago where I heard about a development deal. I'm like, well, that sounds interesting. And I said, is there a way I can get in on this? And they're like, oh, funding's closed. And the next year when I was in the room, like I had done a little more research, because in the conversation, I heard a term that was totally unfamiliar to me, and that was accredited investor. And I went home and was like, I knew that I'm like, next time I see these people, I'm going to be prepared with some better questions. Well, I learned that I was an accredited investor. What? Right. I'm like, okay, well, this is a new, like, I don't know what that means, but apparently there will be some options for me. And so I went back the next year and had some better questions and said, hey, is there anything else like this happening that I can get in on? I'm like, surprise, like I'm an accredited investor. Mm-hmm. And, can you point me in a direction that I can learn? I'd been in school, so I didn't have 2 years of full-time employment. I wasn't going to qualify for a mortgage to buy a rental property, for example. And I didn't know the term leverage as it applied to real estate, but I knew that's what I wanted to do with my money. And so, like, I'm not trying to put a couple $100,000 into a condo and, get $600 a month. Like, how can I make it grow? Well, I learned two things that day. I didn't really get the guidance I was looking for from that person, which is okay. They've become one of my biggest supporters. Like, they didn't really know what my vision was. I didn't really know what my vision was. But it led me to look for places where I could learn and grow in this space. So I looked for a women's real estate investing group, and I found one that was having a 3-day seminar like a week later, which was awesome timing. And I went to that seminar and learned about all the different asset classes and ways to invest. I learned about syndications, buying land, and this really weird and confusing thing called notes. That was about 3 or 4 years ago. If you've never heard of notes, like, nobody's heard of notes. Everybody has a mortgage. Nobody has heard of notes. Right. So it's very strange. I dug into a couple of areas of real estate, and that was one that really aligned with what I want. We have freedom and flexibility and options and how to pivot. And that's what I loved about notes. So that's where that's when I started investing in my own education started. And then, 2 or 3 years later, here we are, and I have a few assets under management, and I'm not brand new, thank goodness, but I am newer and learning every day.
And there's a lot to learn. And we've talked about this before, Dave, where it's hard to, if you're teaching notes, it's hard to say, here are all the possible things that could happen, because they're limitless. Everybody's got a story, everybody's got their own situation, and in a lot of cases, it's really a case-by-case situation. And then, like, okay, so what do you do here? And it's a different situation because it's a different person, it's a different asset class, it's a different state, it's a different county. And you kind of, a lot of it is just kind of on the job training, and you just kind of figure it out as you go. But that's one of the things I love about it, is that it's different and it's exciting, and you never know exactly what way it's going to go, which can be fun. It can be frustrating, but it can be fun.
So Candace, what about note investing was so attractive to you that you would switch away from your goal, which was commercial real estate? What was it about notes? Was it one thing, two things, or was it a person, like someone came around, like really kind of held you and said, this is the way to go?
A combination. My education has come through our friend Paige, and she does an amazing job educating, and I gained a really solid foundation and kind of went through all of her levels of program. So that was the start. But and it's like, this is a relationship business, at least to me. And so it's like, who do you want to align yourself with, and who do you feel good about learning from? But from the notes aspect, I really like that there are all the ways to pivot. That makes me feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
If plan A doesn't work out, we can have a plan B, C, D. And that really works for me. I like that flexibility and those options. So that's what I love about notes, and the ability to scale.
It's very much a thinking game.
Yeah.
Where you're like, okay, this didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. And then, okay, so what else could we do? And you get creative, and it's very collaborative. You can talk to me or Dave or anybody. You can talk to just about anyone. And it's a very open community, and we like to share ideas and war stories and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That has for sure been one of the greatest things. If anyone newer is listening, go to conferences. This year was my first year going to conferences. I met Nate at DME and met Dave a couple months later in Las Vegas. Get in the room and learn from people, because everyone is so nice and helpful and will totally like bring you along. And I'm glad to be, joining that group of people who can be helpful to whoever's a few steps behind.
So there's a lot of people who've said to me, I'm very intimidated by conferences, right? I don't want to go there. I don't know much. I'm going to be around a bunch of people who talk probably way above my level, that have millions of billions of dollars that I just don't. What do you say to those people who say conference is a big deal? Is it a big deal?
Oh my gosh. I've only told a couple of people this, but now I guess everybody can know. I was terrified to go to my first conference. I mean, I knew Paige and I knew the people that I'd gone through her education with and have some friends. Nobody I knew was going to be there. And I almost didn't go. And I just said to myself, literally, like, Candace, if you're going to do this, you have to do this. And are you doing this or you're not doing this in your life? And I went, and my strategy was find someone who looks nice and sit next to them. A lot of what I heard at the first conference, and even, every time, there are always going to be smarter people in the room than you. There are always going to be people who are talking about things you don't know. That's the point.
Yeah.
That's how you learn. So most people are really friendly. Stand around in a group, say hi, introduce yourself, and take notes, because the list of what you want to learn about is just going to grow. That's okay. To me, that's kind of the whole purpose.
And it's interesting too, when you get into a conversation, we kind of talked about this at the beginning. You can get in a conversation and you're going to get different points of view and different opinions, and that's good. And you want to have as many different opinions and points of view as you can, so that you can say, okay, so that you can start to kind of put those pieces together and say, so in this situation, I could do that, or this, that seemed to work for this person, and that didn't work for that person. And that's all part of the education, all part of forming where you're going to go.
Yeah. And with that said, like, a lot of people ask the question, well, should I go first or seconds? You're going to talk to a bunch of people who do all kinds of stuff, right? Is it overwhelming at first?
Yeah, yes, because I know I have a solid foundation in the notes business, but you can't learn about all the parts, no matter where you get your education from. And so I did go to the conference, and here I learned about partials. I learned about, Paige doesn't do first, and there are reasons for that. And then there are these people who are seconds. then there are people who only do seconds. I'm like, well, that's a new perspective.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a little overwhelming, but when you're new, like the shiny object syndrome, like everything's amazing, exciting. And it is like, that's the great part of this.
Yeah.
You don't have to do everything. And hearing about these things that everyone else is doing, at least for me, is really helping shape what I want to do and how I want to grow my own business. It's a wonderful thing. You can't pick everything. That's okay. Figure out what aligns for you and what you want. Are you doing this as an investor? Are you doing this as a business? There's no wrong answer.
Right.